My 67th birthday started with a whisper. Change the locks while I distract him. 7 words that destroyed my world. My daughter Rachel whispered them to her husband Trevor in my kitchen, thinking I was asleep in my recliner after birthday cake. She was wrong. At 67, losing your wife doesn't make you deaf. It makes you desperate for any human connection, even conversations not meant for your ears. My name is Edward Nash. For 40 years, I designed navigation systems for Boeing aircraft, the kind that guide million-dollar machines carrying hundreds of lives across thousands of miles. When Helen died 18 months ago, I thought my biggest challenge would be learning to live alone in the house we'd shared for 38 years. I never imagined my biggest threat would come from the daughter I'd raised to value honesty and the son-in-law I'd welcomed into our family. Those whispered words revealed everything. The locksmith appointment at 2:15. The fake doctor visit Rachel had scheduled for the same time. The reason Trevor kept asking about my $750,000 life insurance policy, my own daughter was planning to steal my house on my 67th birthday. But here's what Rachel didn't know about her old man. 4 decades of engineering complex systems teaches you to spot failures before they become catastrophic. And I'd been watching my family's system collapse for months. The locksmith van was already turning onto my street. Rachel was grabbing her car keys to take me to the doctor. And I had exactly 1 hour to decide whether to save myself or lose everything to the 2 people I trusted most. This story has more twists than you can imagine, because sometimes you have to sacrifice everything you thought you knew about family to survive the people who claim to love you. If you've ever discovered that the people closest to you had ulterior motives, you'll understand why I'm telling this story. Hit subscribe, because what happened in the next 60 minutes will change how you think about trust forever. An hour later, Trevor returned from his errand, trembling like a man who'd just dug his own grave. Let me back up 18 months to the day my world ended and began again. Helen died on a Tuesday morning in March, slipping away while I held her hand in Swedish Medical Center. 41 years of marriage, and I was suddenly alone in a house that felt too big, too quiet, too full of memories. Rachel appeared that same afternoon, still wearing her black funeral dress, carrying a casserole and a briefcase. "Dad, I know this is terrible timing, but we need to talk about Mom's affairs." I was grateful. A grieving widower drowning in insurance forms, medical bills, and legal documents needs family support. Rachel had always been the organized one, the planner, the one who remembered birthdays and anniversaries when I forgot. She'd graduated summa cum laude from Washington State University with a degree in marketing. Smart, capable, efficient. Everything you'd want in a daughter helping with estate matters. That was my first mistake. Confusing competence with trustworthiness. "Dad, let me handle the paperwork. You shouldn't have to deal with all this stress." She spread documents across my dining room table like a general planning a campaign. Insurance policies, bank statements, investment portfolios, retirement accounts. Helen's entire financial life reduced to numbers on pages. "The life insurance alone is $750,000, Rachel said, her pen moving across forms with practiced efficiency. "Plus, your Boeing pension is worth $890,000. The house is valued at $1.2 million, and your savings and investments total another $650,000. I watched her calculate my worth like an appraiser evaluating merchandise. At the time, I thought she was being thorough. Later, I realized she was taking inventory. "Total estate value, approximately $3.2 million, she concluded, closing her notebook with satisfaction. "Dad, you're financially secure for life." Trevor arrived an hour later, carrying flowers and condolences. He'd married Rachel 3 years earlier, a real estate agent with a firm handshake and an easy smile. Clean-cut, presentable, the kind of son-in-law who remembered to ask about my health and Helen's treatments. "Ed, I'm so sorry for your loss. Helen was an incredible woman." He seemed genuine. His questions about my plans, my financial security, my ability to manage a loan, they all sounded like natural concern from family. "Dad, Trevor thinks you should consider updating your will," Rachel said. With Mom gone, the beneficiary structures need to change. That made sense. Helen and I had structured everything assuming one of us would survive to inherit from the other. With her gone, I needed new arrangements. We found a great attorney who specializes in elder law, Trevor added. Jennifer Wells at Wells and Associates. She can handle the will updates and make sure everything's protected. Jennifer Wells. I filed that name away, not knowing I'd be calling her under very different circumstances 6 months later. Also, Dad, Rachel continued, you should probably give us copies of all your financial documents, just for safekeeping in case something happens. Something happens? Like what? You know, if you have a medical emergency, or if you're traveling, or if you need help managing things. That also seemed reasonable. Families should have access to important documents. In emergencies, I made copies of everything: bank statements, investment portfolios, insurance policies, account numbers, even my social security card. I handed my entire financial life to my daughter because she was family, and family is supposed to help family. That was my second mistake. Over the following months, Rachel's visits increased. She'd arrive every Tuesday and Friday with grocery bags and concern. Dad, you look tired. Are you eating enough? Are you sleeping okay? I appreciated the attention. Grief is a lonely disease, and Rachel's visits were bright spots in gray weeks. She'd cook dinner, help with laundry, organize my medicine cabinet. The perfect devoted daughter, caring for her widowed father. Trevor would join us for dinner, always asking thoughtful questions about my health, my finances, my plans. Ed, have you thought about what you'd do if you couldn't live independently anymore? I'd figure something out. But Dad, Rachel would interject, you shouldn't have to figure things out alone. That's what family is for. They painted a picture of inevitable decline, of growing frailty, of increasing dependence. All natural, all reasonable, all designed to make me grateful for their involvement. We just want to make sure you're protected, Rachel would say. There are so many scams targeting seniors these days. People who pretend to care but really just want your money. The irony is breathtaking in retrospect. By month 6, they'd established a routine. Rachel had keys to my house for emergencies. Trevor had started handling some of my financial correspondence to reduce your stress. They'd convinced me to add Rachel's name to one of my checking accounts for convenience. Small steps, incremental changes, each one reasonable in isolation, devastating in combination. The patterns were there. I just didn't recognize them yet. Rachel's visits always included financial discussions. Trevor's questions always probed my understanding of my own affairs. They'd exchange glances when they thought I wasn't looking, like parents coordinating a story for a child. But I wasn't a child. I was a Boeing engineer with 40 years of experience solving complex problems. And the biggest problem in my life was developing right under my nose. The wake-up call came on my birthday, when I heard Rachel whisper about changing locks and keeping me busy. Everything clicked into place with mechanical precision. The pattern recognition skills that had served me well at Boeing finally engaged with my personal life. My daughter and son-in-law weren't caring for me. They were conditioning me. I hadn't told Rachel about the home security system I had installed 2 months earlier. The fake doctor's appointment was Rachel's masterstroke, and I almost fell for it completely. The call came at 10:30 a.m. on my birthday morning, Rachel's voice thick with manufactured concern. Dad, I've been thinking about our conversation last week about your memory. I'm really worried. We hadn't had any conversation about my memory last week. Rachel hadn't even visited last week, but I let her continue. I called Dr. Mitchell's office this morning and explained the situation. He can squeeze you in this afternoon for a quick evaluation. Dr. Mitchell, I'd never heard of him before, but Rachel spoke his name like we'd discussed him many times. What kind of evaluation? Just basic cognitive testing. Memory, reasoning, that sort of thing. It'll put everyone's minds at ease. Everyone's minds. Not mine. Everyone else's. Dad, I know you don't like doctors, but this is important. Yesterday, you asked me the same question 3 times. I hadn't asked Rachel any questions yesterday. She hadn't called, hadn't visited, hadn't even texted. And last week when I stopped by, you seemed confused about what day it was. Another lie. but told with such sincere concern that doubt crept into my mind. Was my memory failing? Had these incidents happened and I'd forgotten them? That's the insidious genius of gaslighting. It makes you question your own perceptions. The appointment is at 2:30, Rachel continued. I'll drive you. We can grab lunch afterward and celebrate your birthday properly. 2:30 p.m., 15 minutes after Trevor's locksmith appointment. At 2:10 p.m., Rachel appeared at my front door with car keys and a sympathetic smile. Ready, Dad? I was dressed and waiting, playing the role of the concerned senior, following his daughter's guidance. But I'd made a crucial detour through my kitchen, where my phone was charging, and my home security app was displaying live feeds. Trevor's truck was parked 2 blocks away on Pine Street, positioned for a clear view of my driveway. He'd been sitting there since 1:45 p.m., waiting for Rachel to remove me from the equation. The Bellevue Lock Company van had just turned onto Maple Drive. Dad, we need to leave now, or we'll be late for Dr. Mitchell. I returned to the living room, car keys jingling in my hand. Rachel's face was flushed, her left hand trembling slightly, the same tell she'd had since childhood when caught in elaborate lies about homework or broken vases. You know what, honey? I'm feeling a bit dizzy. Maybe we should reschedule. Her smile faltered like a mask slipping. Dad, they're squeezing us in as a special favor. If we miss this appointment, it could be weeks before Dr. Mitchell can see you again. Then it'll be weeks. I sat back down in my leather recliner, the same spot where I'd heard their whispered conspiracy an hour earlier. Rachel's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her face went pale. A text from Trevor, no doubt, asking where the hell we were and why his locksmith was waiting in my driveway. Dad, please. This evaluation is really important for your health. More important than my comfort on my birthday? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it, because saying yes would reveal too much, and saying no would undermine her entire argument. Through my front window, I watched the locksmith van park in my driveway. A uniformed technician climbed out, checked his work order, and walked toward my front door. Rachel's phone started buzzing continuously. Trevor calling now, panic mode engaged. I stayed in my chair, studying my daughter with the analytical eye I'd brought to decades of engineering problems. When had those laugh lines around her eyes hardened into calculation? When had her hugs become evaluations of my frailty and bank balance? When had I stopped being her father and become her financial planning problem? The locksmith knocked. 3 sharp raps that echoed through the house like gunshots. Rachel jumped at the sound, her phone still buzzing in her hand. She looked from me to the door, calculating rapidly. Answer it and reveal the plan, or ignore it and deal with Trevor's rage later. She chose to ignore it. The knocking continued, more insistent now. Through the window, I could see the technician checking his paperwork, probably wondering why nobody was answering when his work order clearly indicated a 2:15 p.m. appointment. Rachel's phone rang again, Trevor's name on the display, his face smiling from her contact photo like a predator showing teeth. She declined the call. Dad, that's probably just a solicitor. We really need to get going. I'm not going anywhere, Rachel. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. For 35 years, Rachel had been my little girl, my pride and joy, my legacy. Now she was a stranger wearing my daughter's face, using my grief as a weapon against me. The locksmith knocked one more time, waited 30 seconds, then returned to his van. I watched him drive away, taking Trevor's master plan with him. Rachel's phone buzzed with another text. This one made her hands shake. Dad, I think you're having one of those confusion episodes Dr. Mitchell warned us about. Dr. Mitchell, who I'd never met, warning about episodes that had never happened. I think you're lying to me, Rachel. She tried to maintain her concerned daughter expression, but I could see the mask cracking around the edges. My phone started buzzing with alerts from the security system. Motion detected, unauthorized personnel, multiple vehicles in the vicinity. But the most important alert was the one in my brain. My daughter was trying to destroy me. At 3:17 p.m., I called Jennifer Wells at Wells & Associates. Rachel had mentioned her months earlier as an elder law specialist, though for very different reasons than I was calling now. Wells & Associates, this is Jennifer. Ms. Wells, this is Edward Nash. I need to see you today. It's urgent. Mr. Nash, today is Saturday. Our offices are... Oh, I'll pay weekend emergency rates. I believe my family is attempting to steal from me, and I need legal protection immediately. The line went quiet for several seconds. Then, Mr. Nash, I'll be right over. Can you give me your address? 1847 Maple Drive, Bellevue. And Ms. Wells, I have documentation. Jennifer Wells arrived at 4:30 p.m. driving a silver Mercedes and carrying a briefcase that looked like it could survive a nuclear attack. Mid-50s, silver hair pulled into a conservative bun, eyes that missed nothing. She'd built her practice protecting seniors from exactly what I was experiencing, and her reputation in the legal community was sterling. I led her into my living room, where I'd prepared a folder thick with evidence I'd been collecting for the past 2 months. Mr. Nash, tell me what's happening. I started with the whispered conversation I'd overheard that morning, the coordinated locksmith plan, the fake doctor's appointment. Wells listened without interrupting, taking notes in precise handwriting. And you recorded this conversation? No, but I have security cameras throughout the house that captured their arrival and departure times, which corroborate the timing they discussed. She nodded approvingly. What other evidence do you have? I handed her printouts from my home surveillance system, timestamps, photos, audio clips from the past 8 weeks. Rachel and Trevor discussing my declining capacity. Trevor researching nursing homes and their admission procedures. Rachel practicing concerned daughter phone calls. Wells studied each document with the focus of a surgeon examining x-rays. Mr. Nash, have you noticed any irregularities in your financial accounts? That's where it gets interesting. I pulled out another folder, this one containing bank statements and copies of financial documents. 3 weeks ago, I received a notice from my bank about attempted electronic transfers from my primary savings account. How much? $89,000. 3 separate attempts over 5 days. All declined due to insufficient authorization. Wells' eyebrows rose. Did you authorize these transfers? Absolutely not. The transfers were attempted using a power of attorney document that I've never seen before. I handed her the document in question. My signature was there, dated March 22nd, 2023, witnessed and notarized. Professional looking, legally formatted, completely fraudulent. Mr. Nash, if this signature is forged, your daughter has committed a Class B felony under Washington state law. The room felt colder. Rachel wasn't just planning to steal from me. She'd already started. There's more, I continued. Last month, Rachel suggested I update my will to reflect Helen's death. She recommended an attorney, had specific language she wanted included, even offered to handle the appointment scheduling. Did you follow through? I made the appointment, but I didn't keep it. Something felt wrong about the whole situation. Wells examined the proposed will language Rachel had provided. Her frown deepened with each paragraph. Mr. Nash, this document would give your daughter immediate control over your assets upon any declaration of mental incompetency, even temporary. It also establishes a framework for guardianship proceedings that would be very difficult to contest. Meaning? Meaning if you'd signed this and then been declared mentally unfit, even for a brief period following an illness or accident, Rachel would have gained permanent control over your $3.2 million estate. I thought about the fake doctor's appointment, the nursing home discussions, the whispered plans about accidents and insurance payouts. Ms. Wells, I need to ask you something, and I want a straight answer. Based on what I've shown you, am I in physical danger? She looked up from the documents, her expression grave. Mr. Nash, you described overhearing them discuss life insurance payouts following an accident. Yet you have evidence of attempted financial fraud. You have documentation of plans to have you declared mentally incompetent and institutionalized. She paused, choosing her words carefully. In my 15 years of elder law practice, I've seen this pattern before. It rarely stops with financial theft. What are my options? Immediate asset protection through emergency court orders, criminal referral for the forged power of attorney, civil restraining orders to prevent further contact, and Mr. Nash, we need to secure your living situation before they attempt another approach. Wells opened her briefcase and pulled out a retainer agreement. My fee for this type of case is $15,000, payable immediately. Given the urgency and scope of what we're dealing with, I recommend we begin proceedings first thing Monday morning. I wrote the check without hesitation. After 40 years of Boeing engineering salaries, $15,000 was a reasonable investment in protecting $3.2 million. Now, Wells said, tucking the check into her briefcase, let me explain Washington state's vulnerable adult protection statutes. When someone attempts to financially exploit a senior citizen, the law provides for immediate emergency relief. She smiled when she said it, but there was steel in her expression that reminded me of Helen when someone threatened her family. Ms. Wells, what exactly can we do to them? Mr. Nash, by Monday afternoon, your daughter and son-in-law are going to learn that stealing from seniors is a very serious crime in Washington state. I was about to discover just how serious. Monday morning at 8:43 a.m., I hired private investigator Collins, 23 years with the FBI, now running his own firm specializing in background investigations and financial forensics. Jennifer Wells had recommended him with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for fine wine or perfect weather. Mr. Nash, I understand you need background verification on a family member. My son-in-law Trevor Porter, age 38, real estate agent, married to my daughter for 3 years. I have reason to believe he may have a criminal history. What kind of reason? I explained the overheard conversation, the attempted financial fraud, the coordination with Rachel on what appeared to be an elaborate elder abuse scheme. Mr. Nash, let me be clear about something. If Trevor Porter has prior convictions for financial crimes, especially those targeting elderly victims, his current behavior toward you constitutes a federal crime under the Elder Justice Act. How long will a background check take? For criminal history, 24 hours. For financial records and civil judgments, 72 hours. But Mr. Nash, if this man has the kind of history you're suspecting, I'll call you immediately. Collins called at 2:17 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. I was in my kitchen making coffee and trying to process the surreal reality that my daughter was planning to rob me, when my phone rang. Mr. Nash, you need to sit down for this. I was already sitting, but I gripped the kitchen table anyway. Trevor Porter has 3 prior convictions for elder financial abuse. 2 in Los Angeles County, 1 in Orange County, California. He served 18 months in state prison and was released 14 months ago. The coffee mug slipped from my fingers and shattered on the tile floor. Mr. Nash, you there? 3 convictions? It gets worse. His modus operandi is exactly what you described. He targets women with access to elderly family members, establishes relationships, gains trust, then systematically exploits the elderly victims through forged documents, unauthorized transfers, and eventual isolation in care facilities. I stared at the broken coffee mug, thinking about Rachel's brilliant academic career, her marketing expertise, her ability to build relationships and influence people. How had she fallen for a professional predator? Collins, what kind of sentences did his previous victims receive justice? That's the thing, Mr. Nash. In all 3 cases, the elderly victims died before the cases went to trial. Natural causes, according to the death certificates, but the timing was convenient. Convenient how? Victim 1 died in a care facility 3 days before his scheduled testimony. Heart attack. Victim 2 died in a bathtub fall 6 weeks into the criminal investigation. Victim 3 died of pneumonia in the nursing home Trevor had placed him in. I felt the blood drain from my face. Are you saying, I'm saying Trevor Porter has a pattern of elderly victims dying at opportune moments in criminal proceedings. I'm also saying that your daughter may not be the mastermind you think she is. What do you mean? Rachel's financial problems started 2 years ago, right around the time she met Trevor. But here's the interesting part. She took out a $200,000 home equity loan 6 months before your wife died. The implications hit me like a physical blow. She was planning this while Helen was still alive? It appears so. But Mr. Nash, Trevor's criminal history suggests he may have been planning it long before Rachel realized what she was part of. Meaning? Meaning your daughter may be another victim. Trevor specializes in manipulating women to gain access to elderly targets. Rachel's debt, her vulnerability, her access to you. She fits his victim profile perfectly. I thought about Rachel's behavior over the past months. The increasing financial pressure, the growing desperation in her questions about my estate, the way she deferred to Trevor in financial discussions. Had she been manipulated into this, or was she a willing participant? Collins, I need you to dig deeper into both of their finances. I want to know about debts, spending patterns, travel, everything. Already on it. Give me 48 more hours. Those 48 hours felt like 48 years. I watched every car that drove down Maple Drive, checked my security system obsessively, jumped at every phone ring. Wells had filed emergency motions to freeze my accounts pending a competency evaluation, but this time it would be my evaluation, conducted by doctors of my choosing. Thursday evening, Collins called with his final report. Mr. Nash, Rachel, and Trevor are in deeper than I initially thought. Total debts, $640,000. How is that possible? Home equity loan, $200,000. Credit card debt, $185,000. Personal loans, $75,000. And here's the big one, gambling debts in Las Vegas, $180,000. Gambling debts? Illegal sports betting, high-stakes poker, casino markers, the kind of debt that doesn't go away with bankruptcy, the kind of debt that gets people hurt when they don't pay. Suddenly, their urgency made perfect sense. They weren't just stealing from me for greed. They were stealing from me for survival. Collins, how much time do they have before these debts become a physical threat? Based on my Vegas contacts, maybe 6 weeks. After that, people start getting visits from collectors who don't take no for an answer. 6 weeks. That explained the accelerated timeline, the desperate coordination, the willingness to risk felony charges for access to my estate. There's something else, Mr. Nash. Rachel made 3 trips to Las Vegas in the past 6 months, supposedly for work conferences, but there were no marketing conferences in Vegas during those dates. And Trevor? Told his real estate firm he was visiting his sick mother in Phoenix during the same dates, but his mother died 4 years ago. They'd been gambling together, losing together, planning my destruction together. Mr. Nash, there's one more thing you need to know. What? Nevada gaming authorities have Rachel and Trevor flagged for suspicious betting patterns, large cash deposits, erratic winning streaks followed by massive losses, patterns consistent with money laundering or fraud. They were gambling with stolen money? That's what it looks like. And Mr. Nash, if they're that deep with Vegas bookmakers, your estate isn't just their retirement plan, it's their survival plan. Rachel didn't know that I knew about Vegas, but Trevor was about to learn that some gambles don't pay off. Friday night at 7:34 p.m., Trevor came to my door alone. No Rachel, no concerned daughter routine, just a man with $640,000 in debts and 6 weeks to solve his problem. I'd been expecting this visit since Wednesday when Wells had filed the paperwork, freezing all my accounts pending a competency hearing. Ed, we need to talk. His voice carried an edge I'd never heard before, the desperation of a cornered animal. I let him in, led him to the living room, where my surveillance system could capture every word. Trevor sat on Helen's favorite chair without asking permission, another small violation that spoke volumes about his true character. The polite son-in-law mask was slipping, revealing something harder underneath. Look, I know you're upset about the locksmith thing. Rachel was just worried about your security after that break-in down the street. What break-in, Trevor? The one at... He gestured vaguely toward the window. You know, the house with the blue shutters. There are no blue shutters on Maple Drive. There was no break-in. Trevor's confident expression faltered. He'd prepared a lie, but hadn't bothered to make it believable. Well, attempted break-in. Same thing. Which house, Trevor? What address? What date? Who reported it? His mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from water. The man who'd spent months building elaborate deceptions couldn't answer simple questions about his own story. The point is, Ed, Rachel loves you. We both do. This lawyer you hired, this Wells woman, she's filling your head with paranoid ideas. I leaned back in my recliner, studying my son-in-law with the analytical skills that had served me well in 40 years of engineering. 3 elder abuse convictions, 18 months in state prison, a professional predator who targeted my grieving daughter, then used her to target me. Trevor, tell me about your mother. My mother? In Phoenix, the one you visit regularly. How are her cancer treatments going? The color drained from his face. The treatments are. It's been difficult. I'm sure they are, considering she died 4 years ago. Trevor shot to his feet like he'd been electrocuted. Who told you that? The same person who told me about Los Angeles County Case number 2019 CR 8863, Orange County Case 2021 CR 247, San Diego County Case 2020 CR 1156. I pulled Colin's investigation report from my desk drawer and dropped it on the coffee table between us. Trevor stared at the document like it was a coiled snake. 3 separate elderly victims, Trevor. 3 separate convictions. 18 months in state prison for systematically destroying people's lives. Trevor's hands were shaking now. The confident manipulator was gone, replaced by a desperate man running out of options and time. You don't understand, Ed. Those were different situations. Misunderstandings. Misunderstandings that resulted in felony convictions? The system is biased against people like me. Those old people, they were confused, paranoid. They didn't understand that I was trying to help them. The casual dismissal of his victim's suffering was breathtaking. In Trevor's mind, elderly people weren't individuals with rights and dignity. They were resources to be harvested. And now you're trying to help me? Exactly. Ed, you're getting older, more vulnerable. There are predators out there who would take advantage of your situation. Predators like you? Trevor's facade finally cracked completely. You think you're so smart, old man, but you don't know what you're dealing with here. I stood up slowly, using every inch of my 6-foot frame. 40 years of Boeing management meetings had taught me how to project authority, how to make younger men understand that experience trumps desperation. Trevor, I designed navigation systems that guided aircraft worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I managed teams of engineers working on projects that affected thousands of lives. I've been dealing with complex problems since before you learned to forge signatures. This is different. How? Trevor's mask slipped entirely, revealing the predator underneath. Because those aircraft don't fight back. Because those engineers don't have leverage over your family. What kind of leverage? The kind that makes Rachel disappear if you don't cooperate. The kind that makes accidents happen to old men who don't know when to shut up. I smiled with 40 years of engineering confidence. Trevor, is that a threat? It's a promise, Ed. You back off this lawyer nonsense. You drop these investigations. You sign the documents Rachel prepared, or you'll regret it for the rest of your life. How long do you think the rest of my life will be? Trevor's silence answered the question more clearly than words ever could. I walked to my desk and pulled out another folder, this one containing bank records, travel receipts, and photographs from Collins's Vegas investigation. Trevor, let me tell you about Las Vegas. About $180,000 in gambling debts to people who don't accept bankruptcy as payment. About sports betting patterns that have attracted federal attention. About the 6 weeks you have left before your creditors start collecting in more creative ways. Trevor stared at the Vegas documentation like it was a death warrant, which in many ways it was. You need my money to stay alive, I continued. Rachel needs my money to save her house. You both need my death to access my life insurance. Ed, but here's what you don't understand about Boeing engineers, Trevor. We always have backup systems. I pulled out one final document, the irrevocable trust paperwork dated January 15th, 2019. Trevor's face went gray as he scanned the legal language. What is this? It's the document that transferred ownership of my entire estate to the Boeing Engineers Trust. I'm the beneficiary during my lifetime, but I don't own any of it. Trevor's hands were trembling as he read. This means even if you successfully murder me, even if Rachel inherits everything I appear to own, she'll inherit exactly nothing, because I don't legally own anything to inherit. The silence that followed lasted exactly 17 seconds. I know because I was watching the digital clock on my cable box, timing Trevor's realization that his elaborate scheme was worthless. You bastard. I'm an engineer, Trevor. We plan for system failures. Trevor headed for the door, his desperation now mixed with rage. This isn't over, Ed. Yes, it is. He turned back, his face twisted with something approaching hatred. You have no idea what Rachel and I are capable of. I smiled. Actually, I do, because I recorded every word of your confession. Trevor realized he'd just admitted to planning my murder while standing in my living room. The call came Sunday morning at 7:43 a.m., Rachel's voice thick with tears and desperation. I'd been awake since 6:00, sitting in my kitchen with coffee and Collins's final report, waiting for this exact conversation. Dad, I need to tell you something terrible. Trevor thinks you might be developing Alzheimer's. After everything I'd discovered, she was still running plays from their manipulation handbook. The audacity was almost admirable. Really? What makes him think that? He's been researching the symptoms, Dad, the memory problems, the confusion, the paranoid accusations about people trying to steal from you. Those aren't symptoms, Rachel. They're responses to people actually trying to steal from me. Silence. Then, Dad, you're scaring me with these conspiracy theories. Let me guess. Trevor has found a solution to my imaginary medical condition? He's been researching facilities, Dad, places that specialize in caring for people with cognitive decline. I opened Collins' report to the section on Sunset Manor. Monthly cost, $8,500. Federal investigation for Medicare. Fraud ongoing. Trevor's placement fee, 30% of first year's cost. What kind of facilities? There's this place called Sunset Manor. It's supposed to be really nice, Dad. They have specialized programs for people with memory issues. And how did Trevor learn about Sunset Manor? Through his work connections. He knows the director personally. She's willing to expedite your admission. For a 30% finder's fee of $30,600, plus whatever kickbacks Trevor could negotiate from ongoing care costs. Rachel, honey, I need to ask you something important. What? Do you know about Trevor's criminal history? The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. When Rachel finally spoke, her voice was different, smaller, defensive. Dad, Trevor made some mistakes when he was younger. 3 felony convictions for elder abuse isn't mistakes, Rachel. It's a criminal career. He was in a bad place then. He's changed. Has he? Because his current plan to steal my estate and place me in a fraudulent nursing home suggests otherwise. Dad, that's not what's happening. Then explain the forged power of attorney. Explain the attempted bank transfers. Explain why Trevor lied about visiting his dead mother while he was gambling in Las Vegas. I heard her phone hit the floor. When she picked it up, she was crying. Dad, I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to tell me the truth, Rachel. When did you decide to rob your father? It's not robbery. Dad, you don't understand the pressure we're under, the debts, the threats, the people calling at all hours demanding money. Whose debts, Rachel? Mine. Ours. Trevor's from before we met. Dad, we owe $640,000 to people who don't accept payment plans. At least she was finally being honest about the money. And your solution was to steal my life savings and have me killed for insurance money? Nobody's talking about killing anyone. Dad, where are you getting these ideas? From Trevor's own words Friday night when he threatened me in my living room. He threatened you? He promised I'd regret investigating him for the rest of my life. When I asked how long that would be, he didn't answer. The implication was clear. Rachel was sobbing now, but I felt no sympathy. She'd crossed too many lines, violated too much trust. Dad, I never wanted it to go this far. I just needed help with the debts. And Trevor said you had more money than you could ever use, and with Mom gone, you were all alone anyway. So you decided to accelerate the process? Trevor has connections with nursing homes. He said it would be better for everyone if you were in professional care. Safe, supervised, protected. Protected from what? From making poor financial decisions, from being taken advantage of by strangers. The irony was stunning. She was stealing from me to protect me from being stolen from. Rachel, do you understand that what you've done is a federal crime? Dad, we haven't done anything yet. We've just been preparing. You forged a power of attorney document. You attempted unauthorized electronic transfers totaling $89,000. You conspired to have me falsely declared mentally incompetent. Those aren't preparations, Rachel. They're felonies. Dad, please, we can fix this. We can pay everything back once we get on our feet. With what money? With with the money from your estate, eventually. After I'm dead, you mean? After natural causes, Dad. Someday, when you're gone naturally, the money will help us rebuild our lives. But someday isn't soon enough for your Vegas creditors, is it? The question hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Rachel, let me explain something about Nevada gambling debts. The kind you and Trevor have accumulated don't go away with time. They compound with interest and violence. Dad, how do you know about Vegas? I know about all of it. The fake doctor's appointments, the locksmith plan, the nursing home kickbacks, the life insurance requirements, the staged accident discussions. We never talked about staging accidents. Friday night in this room, Trevor and you discussing how to make my death look natural. I wasn't here Friday night. Check your phone records, Rachel. You called Trevor at 8:17 p.m. while he was sitting in my living room confessing to murder conspiracy. I heard her scrolling through her call log. Dad, I called to ask why he was taking so long at your house. And what did he tell you? He said you were being difficult about the nursing home paperwork. What nursing home paperwork? The admission forms for Sunset Manor. Dad, we had everything arranged. The placement fee was reasonable, the director was cooperative, and you would have been safe and cared for. Safe from what? Safe from the people Trevor owes money to. Dad, if we can't pay them back, they'll come after anyone connected to us, including you. Finally, a piece of truth. Trevor had painted me as collateral damage in his gambling debts, and Rachel had bought the story completely. Rachel, there's something you need to understand about your husband. What? He's done this before, 3 times, and in all 3 cases, the elderly victim died before testifying against him. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know about Rachel's awareness of Trevor's true nature. Dad, what are you saying? I'm saying you're married to a serial killer who specializes in murdering seniors for their money. That's impossible. Collins investigated all 3 cases. The pattern is identical every time. I heard Rachel's world collapsing through the phone. But Dad, if that's true, you're not his partner. You're his next victim. I let that realization sink in before delivering the final blow. Rachel, there's something else you need to know. Something about my estate that changes everything. Monday morning at 9:15 a.m., Jennifer Wells called with an update that would change everything. Mr. Nash, I've reviewed all the documentation Collins provided. Trevor Porter's pattern is consistent across 3 states and 15 years. But there's something else we need to discuss. What? Washington state requires 2-party consent for recordings in most circumstances. However, there's a clear exception under RCW 973-030 for situations where you reasonably believe you're in danger of physical harm. Do I qualify? A 3-time convicted elder abuser threatening you in your home while discussing life insurance payouts? I think we can make that case convincingly. What do you need me to do? Get them to incriminate themselves on record. But Mr. Nash, this is dangerous. If they realize you're recording, if they discover you've been investigating them, they may accelerate their timeline. Meaning the accident they've been discussing might happen sooner rather than later. That afternoon at 2:30 p.m., I called Rachel from my kitchen landline while activating the professional recording system Wells had helped me install. Everything wired through my home security network, completely legal under Washington's self-defense exception. Rachel, I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. Maybe you and Trevor were right about the nursing home. Dad? Her voice carried surprised hope. I'm tired of fighting this. If Sunset Manor has the facilities I need, maybe it's time to accept that I can't live independently forever. Relief flooded her words. Dad, I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. Trevor will be thrilled. But, could you both come over tonight? I'd like to discuss the arrangements. Sign whatever paperwork needs to be signed. Of course, Dad. We'll be there at 7. At 6:45 p.m., I activated every recording device in the house. Audio, video, timestamp documentation, everything that would hold up in federal court. At 7:03 p.m., Rachel and Trevor arrived with briefcases and forced smiles. "Dad, we're so proud of you for making this decision," Rachel said, settling onto my couch like she owned it. Trevor spread documents across my coffee table with the efficiency of a predator who'd done this before. "Ed, I've prepared all the Sunset Manor paperwork. Just need your signature in a few strategic places." I pretended to study the forms while the recording equipment silently documented every word, every gesture, every incriminating detail. This is extensive paperwork for a nursing home admission. "It's not just admission forms, Dad," Rachel explained with practiced patience. "These are comprehensive care documents that protect your interests while ensuring you receive proper supervision." "What kind of supervision?" "Medical monitoring, medication management, financial oversight, everything an elderly person needs for safety and security." Trevor leaned forward with predatory enthusiasm. "Ed, this guardianship component ensures that Rachel can handle your affairs when you're not able to think clearly." "When would I not be able to think clearly?" "Dad, you're already showing signs of confusion. Yesterday you called me asking about Mom's doctor appointments, but Mom died 18 months ago." I hadn't called Rachel yesterday. I hadn't mentioned Helen's doctors. But on the recording, it sounded like loving concern from a devoted daughter. "And last week," Trevor added, "you got lost driving to the grocery store. The police had to help you find your way home." Another fabrication. I hadn't driven anywhere last week, hadn't spoken to any police officers. But their lies were building a false narrative of incompetence that would justify everything they planned to do to me. "Ed, the insurance provisions are particularly important," Trevor continued, his voice carrying greed barely disguised as concern. "What insurance provisions?" "Your life insurance policy has accelerated death benefit clauses. If you're declared permanently incapacitated, the $750,000 becomes available for your care costs. But that money would only be available if you're certified as terminally ill or completely incompetent," Trevor finished smoothly. "Don't worry, Ed. We'll make sure everything is handled properly through appropriate medical channels." The recording equipment captured every word of my son-in-law, explaining how to access my life insurance while I was still alive. Rachel nodded with practiced sympathy. "Dad, the accelerated benefits mean you won't be a financial burden on anyone. The money will cover all your care costs." "What happens to the remaining funds?" "After your care costs are covered? After the natural transition?" Rachel's euphemism for my death was chilling in its casual delivery. "The remaining funds help us rebuild our lives and honor your memory appropriately." "Rebuild from what?" Trevor and Rachel exchanged glances, the first crack in their coordinated performance. "From the financial stress of caring for an elderly family member," Trevor said carefully. "I thought the insurance money covered care costs." "It covers basic care, Ed, but there are always additional expenses. Travel to visit you, supplemental medical costs, legal fees for managing your affairs." "What legal fees?" "Dad, when elderly people become incompetent, there are court proceedings to establish guardianship, attorney fees, medical evaluations, ongoing supervision costs." They were describing the legal process they planned to use to steal my estate, while making it sound like an unavoidable burden they were graciously accepting. "And after all those costs are covered?" Rachel's mask slipped slightly. "Dad, whatever remains helps us recover from the financial sacrifices we've made caring for you." "What sacrifices?" "The time away from work, the stress-related health problems, the relationship strain of managing a declining parent." I was still sitting in my own living room, still perfectly capable of managing my affairs, but they were already discussing the financial benefits of my death like I was a commodity to be liquidated. "Rachel, there's something I need to understand about these arrangements." "What, Dad?" "How exactly would this natural transition you mentioned occur?" Trevor leaned back like I'd asked about the weather. "Ed, you're 77 years old. At your age, health events happen. Strokes, heart attacks, falls. It's just the natural progression of aging." "But I'm healthy." "For now," Rachel said softly. "But Dad, elderly people can decline very quickly. One day you're fine, the next day you're having balance problems. Confusion. Accidents. What kind of accidents? Trevor's smile never wavered. Bathtubs are dangerous for seniors. Stairs become hazardous. Even walking to the mailbox can result in falls that have serious consequences. The recording equipment captured every word of my daughter and son-in-law, discussing how to make my murder look accidental. So these accidents, they're predictable? Unfortunately, yes, Rachel said with manufactured sadness. Statistics show that seniors living alone have significantly higher rates of fatal accidents than those in supervised care. That's why Sunset Manor makes sense, Trevor added. Professional supervision, medical monitoring, controlled environment, much safer than living alone where anything could happen. But if I'm going to Sunset Manor for safety, why are we discussing insurance money as if I'm going to die? Another exchanged glance. Their story was developing holes large enough to drive a Boeing 747 through. Dad, even in supervised care, elderly people eventually transition. The insurance provisions ensure that when that natural process occurs, there are resources available for final arrangements and family recovery. They were planning my death while sitting in my living room, eating my birthday cake, pretending to care about my welfare. One more question, I said, reaching for the pen to sign their documents. What's that, Dad? Is there anything about Trevor's background I should know before trusting him with my life? Trevor's confident expression never wavered. Just 40 years of helping families navigate difficult transitions, Ed. No criminal history? No previous legal problems with elderly care situations? Dad, why would you ask something like that? Rachel's voice carried just the right note of hurt confusion. Because Trevor Porter has 3 prior felony convictions for elder financial abuse, and I wanted to see if he'd tell me the truth. The silence that followed was absolute. Trevor's face cycled through shock, calculation, then cold rage. You bastard! You've been investigating us. I've been protecting myself from serial predators. Rachel stood slowly, her world visibly crumbling. Dad, what are you saying? I'm saying your husband has done this before, Rachel, 3 times, and in every case, the elderly victim died before testifying against him. Trevor was at the door now, his desperation finally overriding his careful planning. Ed, you don't know what you're dealing with. If you think recording us changes anything, you're wrong. Accidents can still happen. Actually, they're more likely to happen now. Is that a threat, Trevor? It's a guarantee. I smiled and pointed to the recording device on my bookshelf. Thank you. I needed you to say that on the record. Trevor confessed to planning my murder before he realized what he'd said. Tuesday morning brought the payoff for months of careful planning. At 9:43 a.m., Jennifer Wells called with news that would end Trevor and Rachel's criminal enterprise permanently. Mr. Nash, the recordings you obtained last night are admissible and devastating. We have clear evidence of conspiracy to commit elder abuse, insurance fraud, and what appears to be premeditated murder. What's our next step? I'm meeting with the Bellevue Police and the King County Prosecutor's Office at 2 p.m. today. By 5 p.m., there will be arrest warrants issued for both Rachel and Trevor. At 1:47 p.m., my doorbell rang. Rachel stood on my porch alone, her face streaked with tears and exhaustion. No Trevor. No briefcase full of forged documents. Just my daughter looking smaller and more broken than I'd ever seen her. Dad, can we talk? I let her in, leading her to the living room, where we'd shared birthday cake less than a week earlier. The recording system was still active. Wells had advised me to document any contact until the arrests were complete. Dad, I know what you think about Trevor and me. I know what you've discovered about his past. Do you? The criminal convictions, the other elderly victims, the pattern of what he's done before. Rachel collapsed into Helen's chair, the same spot where Trevor had sat making threats 3 days earlier. Dad, I need to tell you something that Trevor doesn't know I know. What's that? I hired my own private investigator 2 weeks ago. I found out about his previous victims, about how they died, about the real reason he married me. Which is? He researched my family before we ever met. He knew about your Boeing pension, your estate value, your age and health status. He targeted me specifically to gain access to you. I studied my daughter's face, looking for signs of deception, manipulation, continued lies. Instead, I saw something I hadn't seen in months: genuine remorse. Rachel, if you knew Trevor was a predator, why didn't you come to me? Because I was in too deep. The gambling debts, the forged loans, the money I'd already taken from your accounts without permission. You took money from my accounts? Last year, when you were recovering from your surgery, I used your debit card for 3 months, small amounts, grocery money, and gas. I told myself it was temporary. The surgery Rachel was referring to had been minor, arthroscopic knee repair that kept me off my feet for 6 weeks. During that time, Rachel had helped with shopping and errands. I'd given her my debit card dozens of times. How much, Rachel? 8,500 over 3 months. I kept meaning to pay it back, but Trevor said it was my inheritance anyway, that I was just accessing it early. And when the $80,500 wasn't enough? Trevor said we needed a bigger solution. He'd handled situations like this before, helped families transition elderly members into appropriate care while protecting assets from nursing home costs. You believed him? I wanted to believe him. Dad, by the time I realized what Trevor really was, I was already complicit. I'd already committed crimes. I couldn't come to you without confessing to everything. So you decided to commit bigger crimes instead. I decided to try to protect you from Trevor while finding a way to pay back what I'd stolen. Protect me how? Rachel reached into her purse and pulled out a small digital recorder. By recording his conversations for the past 3 weeks, including the ones where he discussed killing you. She placed the recorder on my coffee table like evidence in a trial. He's already positioned evidence to make it look like you were confused, disoriented, trying to check your furnace in the middle of the night. How do you know this? Because he asked me to create an alibi, to take you to dinner, keep you out late, make sure you're tired and off balance when we bring you home. And will you? Rachel looked directly into my eyes for the first time in months. Dad, I've made terrible choices. I've stolen from you, lied to you, betrayed your trust in ways that can never be completely forgiven. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But I will not let that man murder my father. I stared at my daughter, trying to reconcile the woman who'd planned to rob me with the woman now offering to protect me. What do you propose? I propose we give Trevor exactly what he wants, with one modification, which is, instead of you falling down the basement stairs, Trevor falls into a police trap. Rachel was offering to help me destroy her husband. At 7:23 p.m., everything came together with the precision of a Boeing assembly line. Rachel arrived at my door right on schedule, but instead of taking me to dinner, she was bringing Trevor into a carefully orchestrated trap. Jennifer Wells sat in her car 2 blocks away, coordinating with Detective Morrison from the Bellevue Police Department. The recording equipment in my house had been upgraded to broadcast quality. Every word would be captured with courtroom clarity. Dad, Trevor will be here in 10 minutes, Rachel said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what we were about to attempt. He thinks I've convinced you to go out for dinner, that you'll be tired and confused when we return. What's his plan? Wait until we leave, enter through the basement window he loosened yesterday, position evidence of your confusion, then wait for us to return. When you go downstairs to investigate the noise, he'll push you down the concrete steps. And afterward, I'll discover your body, call 911, play the devastated daughter who warned everyone about your declining mental state. Perfect crime, except for one thing. Rachel pulled out her phone, showing me a text message from Trevor. He doesn't know I've been recording his planning sessions for 3 weeks. At 7:34 p.m., Trevor's truck pulled into my driveway. Through the window, I watched him check his appearance in the rearview mirror, preparing for another performance as the concerned son-in-law. Showtime, Dad. Trevor entered my house with his usual confidence, carrying flowers and wearing his practiced smile. Ed, Rachel tells me you're finally ready to discuss Sunset Manor seriously. I think it might be time. Excellent. I thought we could take you to dinner first, celebrate this positive decision, then come back and finalize the paperwork. Where were you thinking? That new seafood place downtown. It stays open late, has a relaxed atmosphere, perfect for discussing your transition to supervised care. the same restaurant where he'd planned to establish our alibi while he prepared my murder scene. Trevor, before we go, I need to ask you something. What's that, Ed? Rachel mentioned you have experience with elderly transitions. Can you tell me about your previous clients? Trevor's smile never wavered, but I caught the microsecond of calculation behind his eyes. Just families like yours, Ed. Adult children struggling to care for aging parents, looking for professional guidance. Any in California? A few. Why? I'm curious about your success rate. How many elderly clients have you successfully transitioned to appropriate care? All of them, eventually. What happened to them after the transitions? Ed, that's a strange question. They lived out their remaining years in safe, supervised environments. All of them? Well, elderly people don't live forever, Ed, but they lived with dignity and proper care until their natural passing. The recording equipment captured every euphemism, every careful avoidance of direct answers. Rachel stepped forward with her own phone recording. Trevor, tell my father about Harold Morrison. Trevor's expression flickered. Who? Harold Morrison, age 73, Los Angeles County. Your first elder abuse conviction. What happened to Mr. Morrison? Rachel, why are you asking about ancient history? Because Mr. Morrison died 3 days before he was scheduled to testify against you. Heart attack in the care facility you'd placed him in. Rachel, you're making your father paranoid. Tell him about Dorothy Chen, Orange County, age 79. Bathtub fall 6 weeks into the criminal investigation. Trevor's careful composure was cracking. Rachel, where is this coming from? Tell him about Eugene Williams, San Diego County, age 81, pneumonia in the nursing home, right before his scheduled deposition. Those were natural deaths. 3 elderly victims, 3 convenient deaths, 3 cases that never went to trial because the primary witnesses died before testifying. I watched Trevor's mask disintegrate in real time. The charming son-in-law disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. Rachel, what game are you playing? The game where I protect my father from a serial killer. Trevor's transformation was complete now. No more pretense, no more careful manipulation. You stupid bitch. Do you have any idea what you've just done? I've just gotten you to confess on record. Trevor spun toward me, his face twisted with rage. Ed, you think you're clever with your recordings and investigations, but none of that matters now. Why not? Because accidents don't require confessions. Because elderly men fall downstairs, whether they're recording conversations or not. He started moving toward me with purposeful intent. Trevor, the basement window is already secure, I said calmly. What? The one you loosened yesterday. Detective Morrison secured it this morning while you were meeting with your Vegas creditors. Trevor froze. Detective Morrison? Bellevue Police Department. He's been monitoring this conversation for the past 20 minutes. Trevor's eyes darted toward the windows, looking for escape routes. Trevor, there's something else you should know, Rachel said quietly. What? I've been wearing a wire for 3 weeks. Every conversation we've had about killing my father has been recorded and turned over to police. Trevor's face went white. You set me up. You set yourself up the moment you decided to murder my father. At 7:52 p.m., Detective Morrison and 3 uniformed officers entered through my front door with weapons drawn. Trevor Porter, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, insurance fraud, and violating the terms of your parole. Trevor looked at Rachel with pure hatred. You have no idea what you've cost us. I know exactly what I've saved. As they handcuffed Trevor, he made one final threat. Rachel, those Vegas debts don't disappear because I'm in prison. They'll come for you next. Actually, they won't, Detective Morrison said. Why not? Because Rachel Nash Porter has been working undercover with the FBI Financial Crimes Unit for 6 weeks. Your Vegas creditors are federal defendants now. Trevor realized he'd been played on a level he'd never imagined. The final revelation came the next morning in Jennifer Wells's office, surrounded by federal agents and legal documents that would reshape everything I thought I understood about the past 6 months. Mr. Nash, Special Agent Catherine Hayes explained, your daughter contacted us 8 weeks ago through our elder abuse hotline. She provided evidence of Trevor's criminal history and his plans targeting your estate. I looked at Rachel, who sat across the conference table looking both exhausted and relieved. Dad, I know what you're thinking. And you're right. I did steal money from your accounts. I did lie to you about our financial situation. I did initially participate in Trevor's manipulation scheme. But? But when I realized Trevor planned to kill you regardless of my cooperation, when I understood that I was just another victim in his pattern, I had to choose between saving myself and saving you. Agent Hayes opened a thick folder. Ms. Nash Porter came to us with recordings, financial documentation, and testimony about Trevor Porter's current crimes and his threats against your life. Why didn't she come to me? Because, Mr. Nash, we needed Trevor to believe the scheme was proceeding normally. If you'd known Rachel was working with us, your behavior would have changed. Trevor would have detected the change and either disappeared or accelerated his timeline. So everything from the past 2 months was an elaborate sting operation designed to capture Trevor Porter in the commission of multiple federal crimes, Wells explained. Rachel's apparent cooperation, the nursing home plans, even the recording equipment in your house, all coordinated with FBI oversight. I stared at my daughter. Rachel, why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth? Because, Dad, I wasn't sure you'd forgive me enough to work with me. Because I'd already betrayed your trust so completely that I couldn't risk you rejecting the one chance we had to stop Trevor. Agent Hayes spread photographs across the table. Mr. Nash, Trevor Porter has been linked to 7 elderly deaths across 4 states over 15 years. You would have been number 8. 7. We've reopened investigations in California, Arizona, Florida, and Nevada. Rachel's cooperation provided the evidence we needed to establish federal jurisdiction and connect cases that local authorities had classified as natural deaths. What happens now? Trevor Porter will face federal charges under the Elder Justice Act, RICO statutes, for organized criminal activity, and first-degree murder charges in at least 3 states. He'll never see freedom again. I looked at Rachel, trying to process the complex mix of betrayal and heroism, of criminal behavior and redemptive action that had defined our relationship for the past months. Dad, there's something else. What? The irrevocable trust you mentioned? The one that supposedly protects your estate from inheritance? What about it? It doesn't exist. My confusion must have shown on my face. Dad, you never created any trust in 2019. That was a story I made up to convince Trevor that murdering you would be financially pointless. But you told Trevor what I coached you to tell him. During the conversation, the FBI was monitoring. We needed him to believe the estate was protected, so he'd focus on confession rather than immediate violence. Jennifer Wells smiled. Mr. Nash, your estate is entirely unprotected by trust structures. If you'd died, Rachel would have inherited everything. Which means when I chose to work with the FBI instead of inheriting $3.2 million after your murder, I was giving up the largest payday of my life to save your actual life. I stared at my daughter, the woman who'd stolen from me, lied to me, betrayed me, and ultimately sacrificed millions of dollars to protect me from a serial killer. Rachel, why? Because somewhere in the middle of this nightmare, I remembered that you're my father. Because Helen would never forgive me if I let greed destroy what remains of our family. Because some things are more important than money. Agent Hayes stood to leave. Mr. Nash, you should know that your daughter's cooperation was voluntary and uncompensated. She'll face charges for the initial theft and fraud, but her assistance in capturing Trevor Porter will be considered during sentencing. After the agents left, Rachel and I sat in Wells's office, surrounded by the wreckage of Trevor's schemes and the possibility of rebuilding something from the ruins. Dad, I know I can't undo what I did. I can't erase the betrayal or rebuild your trust with apologies. What can you do? I can spend whatever time I have left proving that the daughter you raised is still in here somewhere. For the first time in months, when I looked at Rachel, I saw my daughter instead of my enemy. The Boeing engineer's trust didn't exist, but Rachel had chosen her father's life over her inheritance anyway. 8 months later, I'm sitting in the same leather recliner, watching the sunset over Bellevue through windows that no longer need security cameras. The house feels different now. Not lighter, exactly, but honest. Like secrets that had been poisoning the air have finally been ventilated away. Trevor Porter received life without parole, plus 90 years across multiple federal and state jurisdictions. 7 elderly murder victims finally received justice, and their families received closure they never expected. The FBI estimates Trevor stole over $4.2 million during his 15-year career of targeting seniors. Rachel served 6 months in minimum security prison for financial fraud, followed by 2 years of probation and community service, specifically focused on elder abuse prevention. She speaks at senior centers now, warning elderly people about the tactics family predators use. Her presentations are devastatingly effective because she knows the manipulation from the inside. We're rebuilding slowly. Trust, once shattered, doesn't repair overnight. But every Tuesday, Rachel comes over for dinner that she cooks herself, using groceries she buys with her own money from her new job at the Bellevue Community Center. No briefcases, no financial documents, no ulterior motives. Just a daughter learning how to be a daughter again. The real Boeing Engineers Trust now exists. I created it 3 months ago with Wells' assistance. It provides scholarships for first-generation engineering students and funding for elder abuse prevention programs. 4 students received full tuition this year, including a young woman whose grandfather died under suspicious circumstances in a Nevada nursing home. I still live alone, but I'm not isolated anymore. Anderson checks on me weekly, though she's back from visiting her sister and sharper than Trevor ever realized. Jennifer Wells calls monthly, and not just for legal business. Turns out we both love classic jazz and terrible puns. The scholarship recipients send quarterly updates on their progress. Family isn't just DNA. It's the people who choose you when choosing becomes difficult. It's the ones who stick around during the rebuilding, not just the easy times. Rachel wrote me a letter every day during her incarceration, not asking for forgiveness, not making excuses, just documenting her thoughts, and the slow process of understanding how she'd lost herself in desperation and greed. I kept every letter. Reading them was like watching someone recover from a serious illness. Last month, Rachel asked if I thought Helen would forgive her. I told her that Helen already had, that forgiveness was never the question. The question was whether Rachel could forgive herself enough to become someone worth forgiving. We're working on that together. If you've lived through family betrayal, or if you're caring for an elderly parent, or if you suspect financial abuse in your own family, share this story. Sometimes the best protection is knowing you're not alone in the struggle. The trust protects the assets now, but love protects the family. Helen would be proud of that balance. Subscribe if you believe broken families can be rebuilt stronger than they were before.